Setting up, directing, and we are live. Okay, 3 o'clock. It is time for rewriting reality. I am Shiraz. This is a breakthrough show extra. And with me today is Carl Richard, who I'm going to let talk about himself in just a sec. What's going on right now with Rewriting Reality, with Energetic Magic, with me, is there is a big event coming next Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern, and it's on going from frustration to freedom. And it's all about that transition from the full-time job to becoming an entrepreneur, or if you are that entrepreneur, the business isn't big enough, it's not growing, you can't get to be that self-sustaining thing, and you're frustrated as all hell. And Carl has had some experience with this. So he's our guest to talk about his experience. So you know from someone that's gone through it that it doesn't have to be, it can be at times. And I'm sure we're going to hear about that, but you can make that transition. You can shift those beliefs, come up with new ways to live your life, get out of the grind of where you were. And so that's what we're talking about today. And we're going to enjoy ourselves. We've got, the attendees are starting to arrive. You guys are all late. Why are you so late? Be on time for the podcast. We start right at 3. 2 Central. Because Jessica's always on. You know, she always tells me it's 2 Central. I keep saying 3 and this whole thing. In any case, Carl, thank you for being here. Introduce yourself and let's get going.
Thank you so much, Shiraz. I am thrilled to be here, and yeah, I do have some experience, and we'll talk about that with what you said about transitioning from job to being full-time in business. But essentially, what I do and have done since COVID hit is I've been helping business owners, entrepreneurs, and coaches navigate the world of podcasting and showcasing how they can launch simply, with compelling content, and usually within a reasonable amount of time. And it's usually it can be done in about 60 days. Some can do it quicker. Some need a little bit more time, depending on what other things that they might be working on, such as launches or website rebrands or whatever it is. But it's usually something that we can do fairly quickly, and it does a few things. It helps people raise their credibility, which obviously when you're transitioning from being in a career or a type of job into now full-time in your business, that's a great time to also put a podcast out there to elevate your credibility. But any time is certainly a good time. So that's what I've been doing since last whatever that was, March or April of 2020, and a bit of a story leading up to that, but that's essentially what I do.
Okay, so this is fairly new for you, March of 2020. Wait, and so you did this as COVID was hitting too?
Yeah, I did this as COVID was hitting. Now, I have a background in broadcasting, so I spent 25 years behind the microphone. So podcasting was just a natural transition. When I found myself between radio jobs, because that happens quite a bit in the radio industry or even the television industry too, you find yourself between gigs, as we call them. I launched a business as a speaker trainer back in 2011. And that went very well. And I, in the process of being a speaker trainer, launched a podcast and realized that, firstly, I came from a background of broadcasting, and I didn't know what a podcast was. If we'd met 8 years ago and you said, Carl, you should be on my podcast, I'd be like, what's a podcast? What is this thing you're speaking of? So I had to get some education on that. But once I realized how easy it was with the right tools and information to get a podcast out there, I started to ask myself, how many other people don't know how simple this process can be if they have the tools and the training in place to help them do that. So that's where that sort of came from. And then, as I said, when COVID hit and I found myself in this place of, again, and I enjoyed my career in broadcasting, and I enjoyed having a side hustle doing speaker training. I always wanted to go full-time in business. I didn't think it would happen when it did, but it certainly gave an opportunity to provide that information and that training for people, and then also support them through their launches and even beyond that. But it was definitely, there were definitely some times where I wasn't sure how things were going to go. Which I guess is the focus of your event next week, is, a little bit of hope for people that are going through that process.
Absolutely. So you were in that full-time gig, and
yeah,
but you didn't make that. How long were you thinking about making that jump without actually pulling the trigger?
I, I'm embarrassed to say it was, and I'm probably not the only person that's been through this, because we think about, well, okay, how much money do I need to make? What, and we get into this place of fear. We get so connected to a job because it's a security blanket, and we've heard from other business owners, maybe the ones that are in our networks, they're not necessarily short cash, but there's things that are always churning, right? There's things that happen. They have a client, then they don't, then they're getting another client, and you think, wow, to always be in that cycle. But anyways, it was, yeah, I was 8 years, 2011, yeah, 8 years, 8.5 years of having a side hustle
Okay.
that I started when I was underemployed. So I was working at one point, I was working part-time as a broadcaster. Um, and then managed to shift into full-time and had some management opportunities. And I think because there were always growing opportunities with my first love, which was radio. That's what I went to school for. That's what I wanted to do. I loved the whole concept of theater of the mind, and the speaking. I always thought that it would eventually, I didn't give myself a time frame, but eventually it would move into full-time. But I didn't know when, I didn't know how. I had some coaching and I had some training, but I still hung on to that security blanket of the paycheck. And it wasn't until the paycheck, or that security blanket, the opportunity to go full time, shall we say? And I don't want to say it was taken away, because it was a transition out, but it was still the opportunity where you're faced with that should I stay or should I go type of scenario. But I was 8.5 years of running a side business, doing speaker training, and which eventually became podcast training and helping with launching, and also working a full-time job. And I didn't want to pull the trigger. I didn't want to hit go. I was
Okay.
just too scared.
Yeah, and I'm not surprised by that, because I've met people that have talked about that business, and it's been longer. It's been 20 years. It's been like, it's that dream that you think about, but you're so comfy in that paycheck,
Mm-hmm.
and it's safe. There's the fear of the unknown when you move on out of that job. And what if I don't have this steady paycheck?
Yeah.
And one thing I found that's really fascinating is the whole steady paycheck is technically an illusion, because you could get fired. The company could be mismanaged, that can go under. Like, you're in this little buffer, though, of that you don't see what's going on behind the scenes. So you feel safe, even though you don't know what the hell's happening. But once you get into an entrepreneurship, you know what's going on behind the scenes, and you're like, okay.
Yeah, there is no such thing as job security in the job world. I mean, we think there is. We psych ourselves up to believe that there is. But since I've stepped full time into being an entrepreneur, building a company that's doing very well. I mean, Rome wasn't built in a day. It's taking time, but it's doing well. I pay my bills. I have food in my fridge. And even if I didn't, I mean, there are resources out there, right, to help people with that. But you're right. It's an illusion, that paycheck. Or as there was a period of time when I was dabbling in financial services while also being a broadcaster. This is going back several years, but anyways, we called having a job, stood for job, which was just over broke,
Mhm.
because you had to go back every week to
Yeah.
get your paycheck, so you could be just over broke to pay your bills, and maybe there's a little bit left over, maybe not. But when you're an entrepreneur, there are some scary times for sure,
Mhm.
but you don't have a cap on you. You don't have somebody saying that this is all you're going to make, or here's your 2% or 3% raise this year, or here's your bonus, which we've already figured out what that's going to be. And so many jobs are positioned that way. If you have a bonus, if you get a raise, if you have all those things in place. And as I said, I worked in an industry that was, when I left, I was doing not too badly, but I also knew that it was time. And the big thing I think that I did that made it easier was it was like ripping off the band-aid. I didn't just slowly peel it back. I went done.
Ouch.
Done. I'm completely finished with this. I was so blessed to have spent 25 years doing what I did, and now I knew that I could have passion, and I did have passion in this, and it was an amazing fit at the same time. So
Okay. Well, I'm glad it worked out for you. So
It
it's
doesn't always, I know it doesn't always, but and have been times in the last year and a half where I've been scratching my head going, is this the decision I should have made? And it doesn't matter. It's the decision I've made. And if I don't like that decision, as a business owner, I can now make another decision. I can pivot in my business. You can't necessarily pivot in a job. You can pivot out of a job into another job, or maybe there's an opportunity, a promotion within the company that you're working for. But I can pivot in my business and do something else, or have another offering for people as something comes up. And for example, doing podcasting, technology is always changing. So
Mhm.
there might be some new technology that now I can say, oh, I want to focus on this now, or I want to add this to my Rolodex of services that I have for clients. But when you're in a job, you're in whatever that job description says you're going to do until you decide that you're not going to do it anymore. But you have to take the steps to find another job or do something to transition out of that.
Yeah. And it's interesting because one of the reasons people stay in the full-time job is because they think, will I make as much money as an entrepreneur? And I actually did some research and I've got some stats because I think I thought it was lower than this because you hear about all the entrepreneurs struggling and stuff.
Yeah.
But the amounts actually come out to the average entrepreneur in Canada makes $63,922 a year.
Mhm.
The US, it's 43,240, which is equivalent when you do the exchange.
Mhm.
And in the UK, it's 41,862 pounds. So entrepreneurs do well, right? I know people are like, well, I want the six-figure jobs, but a lot of the people are just worried about, am I even going to get by as an entrepreneur? And the average entrepreneur does really, like, the cost of living is, I think, 40,000 a year, and they're at 60s, right? So it's, you're doing well, right? And if your job really takes off, then you can take it to six figure, seven figure, whatever it is. And some people seem to forget that corporations were once entrepreneurs, right?
Yep.
So anything is possible once you decide, you know what, I'm tired of making money for someone else. I want to make money for myself.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing there. I mean, I joke and because I say my boss is an idiot. He works me so hard, or he doesn't work me enough, one or the other, because I am my boss, right? So I always make that joke. But you're right. I mean, and this is not to impress anyone that's watching this. It's just to impress upon you that those numbers, Shiraz, that you mentioned, those are reasonably accurate. I haven't had a full calendar year come through yet, but just by, because of how my transition from job to full-time entrepreneur, how it's happened. But looking at the numbers, I'm pretty much on track with what you're saying. And that has pretty much also replaced, or almost replacing, my income.
Mhm.
And I look at my schedule and I look at what I do and how many clients I have, and I go, I'm only working so many hours in a day. And again, it's not true of all entrepreneurs. Yes, there is a lot of work you do behind the scenes. Yes, occasionally you might have to pull a Saturday if a client needs something, but you know what? You have way more freedom than you do when you have a job. But that income level that you mentioned is so spot on. And again, like you say, though, there are entrepreneurs at 63,000, but those entrepreneurs at 63,000, I will almost guarantee you they're looking at, or they're exploring ways to ratchet up to whatever the next level is for them, whether it's 75 or 100 or whatever. They're looking at those ways to do that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the time thing is a big concern because I know there's that big fear because you hear about entrepreneurs and how much they work.
Mhm.
And when you're in a full-time job, is it, am I giving up a 40-hour week of labor for an 80-hour week of freedom? Like, it's just, right? What's going to happen?
I was in a very different situation though, because I worked in an industry where it's not a job, it's a lifestyle.
Mhm.
So when I left the broadcast industry, I was getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning to be on the air for 5:30 in the morning.
Ugh.
And yeah, I know you're thinking there is a 5:30 in the morning. Anyway, so that but that was my schedule. Get off the air at 10. My day's not finished yet. There's still usually there's production, so there's commercials to voice, there's meetings, there's show prep for the next day. And that's not even including that you might have an event to attend or something to do in the community. And guess what? A lot of things also happen in the community.
Mhm.
They happen on weekends. So a lot of the events that you would attend, they were weekend events.
Okay.
So you would be spending some days you were working 6 days, sometimes 7 days a week. And there's nothing wrong with that if you're doing what you love, but it's not a job. It's not a production job. It's not an office job. In my case, it was a lifestyle, but there were easily 60 to 80 hour weeks.
Yeah.
And because you're also factoring in the weekend and you looked forward to your holidays all the time because you would look forward to that week where you could just go, ah, but why not have that opportunity all the time where you can, if it's Monday and you have no appointments and you don't need to work, I'm obviously working today, but there's some Mondays that go by that I don't have to, or Tuesdays or Fridays, or I have 4-day weekends sometimes because I can. As I said, the only guy that makes me work harder is my boss, which is me. So, but yeah, there's so many misconceptions about that element of time, but you're right. But you get to structure it. That's the difference. You get to structure your 80-hour work week or your 60-hour or 50-hour or whatever it takes when you're in that. Usually in the earlier stages, there's a little bit more ramp up. So you are spending more time and there's more meetings and more efforts on tweaking your website or sales pages or whatever. So you're doing all that stuff. But once that's in place, it's every now and again, you'll have to tweak it and update it. But I know people that have been in business for 20 years and they work 3.5, 4 days a week and take the month of July off. And I go, how do you do that? Well, they've just had more experience and more time in business. So they've given themselves that opportunity and they make above six figures. So,
Yeah. And a lot of it comes down to the mindset too, because
mm,
I've found that a lot of people, entrepreneur, not entrepreneur, but when they come into the entrepreneur mindset world, they have this mindset that you've got to be working hard to achieve success. And while hard work can be a requirement, right, for some things, it's not, you've got to be doing it all the time. You've got to be showing everyone how hard you're working. You've got to prove that you deserve the money. Like there's all these beliefs that have been put into you. And sometimes it's because you come from a family, like if you've got from a family of laborers, then you get that laborer mindset. You've got to put the hard work in, you've got to earn your keep, you've got to do this. But you can create this other reality for yourself where it's like, well, some days I work my ass off and some days I sit on my ass. Like I have the choice, right? And you talk about your boss. Like I was talking to my roommate because this is the last Monday, right? So last Mondays are my days I work from 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. Right? And he just looks at me and goes, "You got to fire your secretary." I'm like, "I know, man. Like it's just 14 hours. What the hell?" But on the flip side of that, I'm willing to do 14-hour days for my business.
mhm.
But I've also structured my business so that I now have 6 mandatory days a month I have to work, and everything else is optional. I schedule it and I do some work and stuff during the other days, but I know I could just work those 6 days and I'm paying all my expenses. I'm good.
Right.
And people don't realize, well, when you've got your business set up and you've thought it through and you've gotten out of these things like I have to be responsible for everything and take care of every single job because it's my business and only I can do it right. And I have to work really hard all the time and show everyone how hard I'm working. And it's going to be a struggle because that's what entrepreneur, and you start dropping all those beliefs, then the entrepreneurship becomes this thing that's just fun. And that's the one thing I don't like, but it's just you hear it so often and it's just become commonplace is that you're working. Because oftentimes when it's your business, it's not working. It's just
Mhm.
being taking time and doing things, doing activities, right? Sometimes playing, but you're getting paid for all of that, right? And one of my favorite stories is my friend Vikas. He owns this company and he loves it. He built it from nothing, and he absolutely loves it. And he's at work every weekday, and oftentimes working through the weekends. And he has a family. And what's funny is like he spends time with his family, but he just loves his work. And there was one year where his wife said, "We're going on a 2 week vacation." He's like, "What?" She goes, "You haven't taken a vacation in years. We tend to go without you. You're coming with us." And he's like, "Fine, fine, okay." And they go on this vacation, and they kept catching him in the hotel room on the computer trying to get work because he loves it so much. And they're like, "Come to the beach." It's like, okay, okay. Let me just get this one thing done. This is the one thing. So he's kind of an extreme case, but he said, "Yeah, I drove my family nuts on the vacation, but I did have fun. I did take some downtime. I did enjoy myself, but I love what I do, and I don't see it as work. I see it as something I get to do every day." And that happens so much with entrepreneurs that are in that zone, as opposed to I've got to work. Right. And I'm again, I'm doing a 14-hour day. I'm all for working hard when it's called for it, but that belief that you've always got to be doing that's what's ahead for you. That's
Yeah, I think you're right there. Especially when you mention mindset. Mindset is huge, and I like the way that you've structured it. I have to figure out how to do that. That's great. I love that. I love that I work 6 days a month. The rest is optional. I love that. Some of my clients might not like that 6 day a month schedule, but anyways, um, but the bottom line is you're right. It is mindset. But think of it the opposite way too. Think of it when you're in a job where the mindset is I have to be at work 9 to 5 or 10 to 6 or whatever the hours are, or 11 to 9 or whatever the hours are that you have to work. And there are some great jobs out there. There's fantastic jobs out there and career opportunities that people have and they totally enjoy. But at the end of the day, most people look at it and they say it's work. And when you go home, your spouse will ask you, husband, wife, whatever, will say, how was work? Not, hey, how was that fun thing you were doing all day? How was work? And now you're right. I call it work. What I'm doing is work, but I know that it's not work. I don't punch a clock. I don't have to, I'm not on a production line. I do production in the sense of creating audio and you know, uh, some visuals for clients, but most of what I do is it's fun. I enjoy doing it. And yes, I would probably be like your friend there on vacation. I'd be the guy, if for no other reason, to hit a client deadline or whatever. I'd want to do it because as much as I enjoy vacation, I also love what I do. That's why I don't mind doing it. I don't mind starting at 8 o'clock in the morning if I have to, and going till 6 o'clock at night if there's something to do, or starting at 10 o'clock in the morning and knocking off at 3 if there's nothing. But that's the luxury of being an entrepreneur, is you can set that schedule, you can set those boundaries, you can set your calendar. There's no one saying, okay, it's 12:30, you need to take a break now, or it's time for you to go home, like that. There's none of that. And and a lot of us are working from home now anyways, but there's none of that. Okay, it's typically, if I was at my job, at my office, I'd be knocking off right about now, so now's a good time to finish and carry it, pick it up tomorrow, and then continue on with whatever else you have to do. This is just phenomenal opportunity. And if you can make that transition, my recommendation is, if I can just, steer the conversation in that direction, my recommendation is don't wait 20 years, don't wait 8 years. If you can hit go, hit go. If there's one thing I've learned in the last year and a half, it's you really need to get comfortable being uncomfortable, because change is constant. So that illusion of that safety net thing we were talking about earlier, Shiraz and I were talking about earlier, that thing called a job, that's an illusion. That safety net, it's there right now, but the bottom can fall out anytime. And we've seen that happen in the last year and a half. We've seen it happen long before that, where people have been forced to transition, and it's uncomfortable. But you get used to being uncomfortable, and you also get used to the difference in that lifestyle, because it does become a lifestyle as opposed to having a job. And you don't mind putting in the hours when it's time to put them in, but you also respect, I find anyways, you respect yourself more. And when it's time to shut things off, whether it be for a week or 10 days or the full month of July or whatever it is, you do it.
Yeah.
And you don't answer the phone. And you tell your clients, I'm gone the whole month of July. By the way, I'm not gone the whole month of July, but just saying there are some people that are. It's a totally different place, and it's a totally different mindset altogether.
Absolutely. Yeah. And when you had that full-time job and you made that transition, how did it feel during that transition?
Absolutely horrible.
Okay. And I'm glad you're being honest about this.
Absolutely. I was, you know what? And there was, there was a nice little cushion to go along with that, but even still, it was just uncomfortable, and there was always that uncertainty, because this is how we're trained. This is how a lot of us are raised to, go to school, get an education, get a good job, all of those things. And a good job is this amount of money, and when this amount of money isn't there, or there's the thought that this amount of money isn't going to be there, that becomes part of the mindset. So there were moments where it was completely uncomfortable. And because I'm also ramping up from a side business that was doing speaker training to something, pivoting into doing something completely different, although not totally different, but different in many different ways. There's rebranding. There's tweaks to your website. There's changing all of your message, all kinds of things that you're now spending or investing your time and your money in that you weren't necessarily doing before. So that also made it uncomfortable, because any client money that was coming in was being reinvested into the business for either training or rebranding or restructuring, new equipment. And so it's not like there was extra. It felt like I still had a job, even though I was transitioning out. It felt like I still had a job, and it was uncomfortable. Now it feels much better. It really does. And I can honestly tell you that there are months, or there are days that go by, and because we're human. You can't get rid of humanity. We're always going to have that in us, where there will always be those little moments of self-doubt, or those little, the angel and the devil sitting on your shoulder, or whatever you want to call it. And, one saying, oh, you're doing great. And the other saying, oh, you're not doing so well. So there's always going to be those moments. But what's nice is, as I've transitioned out and I've moved further away from that safety net, it's amazing how things feel really good. And when I realized that I don't even want to call it a shortfall. It's almost, the shortfall is mental. The shortfall is, I want to do more. I want to make more money, or I want to serve more clients, or I want to help more people. When you feel that there's that shortfall, however you want to frame it, you just go out and do more. You don't necessarily do more work. You might put in a few more hours, but you go and find more of the clients that you want to work with. And that feels good.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it was uncomfortable. It was,
Yeah.
transition was definitely uncomfortable.
And that's the thing. I mean, for me, it was uncomfortable as well with that initial transition. It was a weird, cool transition, because for me, it is about shifting reality and creating these possibilities that weren't there. But there were still those moments of panic, because for me, I decided to get fired from my job, right? But they gave me such a big payout that I used it to start this business.
Mm-hmm.
And what was interesting is, my first year of business, I made $6,500 from the business, right? When I'm used to a six-figure salary, right? And just like, oh, this is uncomfortable, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think
But
that was the
yeah,
other thing too, is that shift in salary, because I know people, when they go from being an entrepreneur, from having a job to being an entrepreneur, there's typically a bit of a downgrade at first. Not necessarily, but it depends. So having a little bit of a cushion or safety net is great as you're ramping up. But you're right, if you look at the dollars and cents after you've spent this money here and paid this expense or this business thing that you had to purchase, you look at what you actually made that year. It's probably not as much as you think, but again, that's starting out.
Mhm.
I think if you were to look at it now, as obviously you obviously have, but you look at it now and go, man, why was I hanging on to that six-figure job
Yeah.
when if you knew then what you knew now, you probably would have done it sooner. I know I would have done it sooner. I would have put if I knew now what if I knew then what I know now,
Mhm.
I would have worked my ass off to be full time within my first 2 years in business
Yeah.
and somehow removed the safety net. But again, that fear mindset
Mhm.
took over and it kept me, falsely comfortable, so to speak, because you're never really comfortable if all you're doing is paying your bills, maybe occasionally going on some mutant form of a vacation, because we never really traveled anywhere. The furthest we've traveled was Cuba, and now we're even looking at taking 2 years from now, depending on travel regulations, but we're looking at doing a 10 days in Germany, cruising up the Rhine.
Nice.
So that is something but you've asked me 2 years ago, would I do that? I'm like, are you kidding? I don't have that kind of money. That's $10,000, $12,000. Now I'm looking at it as, oh, that'll be fun. So, but you look at every aspect differently that way. Um,
And it's neat
yeah.
though, because like we've both been through it. We had that dip and then we come back up. And that's normal for a lot of people that are doing entrepreneurship for the first time. Once you've
Mhm.
got the hang of it, there's a smaller dip, or you just start to go up because you know how it works. And what's neat is with the webinar that's coming up from Frustration to Freedom, afterwards we've got a boot camp. And what's happened is the things I've learned to get to 6 mandatory days a week, a lot of those things are in the boot camp. So when you're starting your business, it's like, did you know you can do this? Did you know you can do this? And it's all the stuff that I didn't know, right? It's like, did you know this could be automated? Did you know you didn't have to do this? Did you? And I'm like, no, I didn't know that shit. I'm like, we're going to let you know that right now, right off the bat, right? So that dip isn't as big as it could be, or it can just start going straight up. And so I'm looking forward to sharing that with people, but because you know so much more that you could share with people now, and as far as running a business, right? And like what you're saying, if I had known, I'm like, I don't want people to be saying that later on once they start a business, because that knowledge is out there.
True. I can also tell you what not to do. You
Yes.
probably do it anyways, but I can also tell you what not to do. And there's a list of more things than we can even cover in the time that we have. If we were to take this same time every day for the next 2 years, we probably wouldn't cover all those things that don't do that. But certainly, yeah, yeah. That's going to be an amazing day when you run that. That'll be phenomenal.
I'm enjoying it.
There's
And I have,
yeah.
yeah, I have to thank my automation specialist, Courtney, because there
Hmm.
were days where she was like, look, like literally looking over my shoulder. And I'm working away, and she's like, you could automate that. Fuck. Like, seriously.
It's true, and that's one thing too that people don't realize is that there are a lot of things that you can either automate it or you can hire someone. And when you say to an entrepreneur you can hire someone, they go, I don't want to hire anybody. I can't do that. Firstly, it's mine. I have to do it myself. No one can do it like me. But then there's always what's the other answer? Oh, I can't afford to hire somebody. I can't afford that. You can't afford not to if you need to do. So one of the things that I've done, and I can't believe in such a short time, Shiraz, that I've been able to do this, but I started getting busy. And busy for me is if I'm spending my days between having sales calls with clients and my typical networking and meetings and that kind of thing, I also have to edit and help people with their podcasts and run my training courses. Well, I was having some pretty long days and I wasn't getting all my editing done. So I realized I had to hire someone. And now I'm excited to go get more work so I can pay that person even more so I can go get some more. But if you'd asked me again, as a part-time business owner, full-time broadcaster, you should hire someone to do your Facebook posts, or you should hire someone to help with your editing. I'd be like, no, I can't do that. I can't afford it, or I don't want to let it go. And
Yeah.
there are some things I don't want to let them go. One of the things I didn't want to let go was my own podcast. I didn't want to put that onto somebody else to edit because it's mine. I know how it sounds. I know how I want it to sound, but you know what? I'm at the point now where I record, I pass it on. I can't expect my clients to trust me with their content and finessing their content to make them look and sound great if I don't trust my editor with my content.
Yes.
So I give my content to my editor to see what he can do with it. And he's great. He does a fantastic job at it. But again, whether it's somebody to help you, a virtual assistant helping you schedule your emails, your blog posts, your Facebook posts, or whatever, you have to, at some point, when you're at that level, you have to be able to let that go. But before you even get there, you have to be able to hit go and say, yep, it's time. And I think we're seeing probably now more than ever, and we've probably said this before, but now more than ever is probably a good time, because if you know something's happening in your industry, for example, like I knew the writing was on the wall. I knew that it would just be a matter of time. So if you know something is happening, or you've been given the opportunity that somebody said, you know what, in the next year, we're transitioning your job out, that's the time not to transition into another job unless you love working. Not playing like Shiraz and I are doing. You love working. If you love working, by all means, go get another job. But why not take that time to transition into something that you're passionate about, something entrepreneurial that will not have another cap over you, or that will not be, putting you in that vulnerable place where, yeah, you have another job today, but, is that going to be what's going to fund your retirement? Or if there is even a retirement? And speaking of retirement, by the way, when you're doing what you love, there's no retirement. Look at actors and singers. They don't retire. Even if they do retire, they're working. Some of them are working well into their 80s, 70s and 80s. They're not hitting 60 or 65 and going, okay, I'm done, I've got to retire. No, they're doing their 6th world tour, then saying, okay, I'm done now. When they're 75, like Elton John, or however old he is now, 74, 76, I can't remember. But anyways, there's no retirement when you love what you're doing. There's just maybe scaling back and doing less of it.
Yeah, pretty much. So before we got on the show, I asked if you were open to having some beliefs shifted for yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So what I'm just thinking right now, I want to do an exchange, because I think the listeners and I guess viewers are going to benefit from that. So what I'd like from you is a little bit of critique, because podcasts are your thing. So a little bit of critique on this podcast, the style, what works, what doesn't work, so I can go, okay, and then they can see, okay, this is what Carl has to offer, and then we're going to flip it around, and we're going to pick something you want to change, some block that's going on with your business, and we're going to work on the beliefs around that. We're going to shift those beliefs, and that should take us to the top of the hour, and we'll see how the show goes. Sound good?
Wow. Wasn't expecting that, but yeah, sure, absolutely.
Okay, so hit me, good and bad. I can take it. Let's go with that.
Oh, thick skin. Okay, very good. As an entrepreneur, you have thick skin.
Yep.
Score 1 point for you. No, seriously, this is a fantastic format. What I like about it is it's very conversational. It's very free flowing. You don't come in with a set list of questions. You know roughly where you want to go, and that's how a podcast should sound. It should be very conversational. All too often, they're not conversational. But this one certainly is. I also like the fact that you have a visual component, although that's not mandatory. A lot of podcasts are audio only. You're sharing it on Facebook. You're putting it out there. You have a lot of, tools at your disposal that, and I don't know what you do with the recording after today. If it goes somewhere, I'm not quite sure what happens with it. But obviously you're streaming it live on Facebook with the intent you're probably going to put it somewhere else. So you're repurposing content. My main suggestion, or my main thing that I would think of moving it forward, moving the ball forward, is there are all kinds of things people don't see behind the scenes. So I'm not even going to talk about the behind the scenes stuff. And there's nothing bad behind the scenes, because I come into most of these events like this, having been a podcaster and having interviewed people and being interviewed by people, I know how to just roll the conversation. Some people don't. So some people need that hand holding. But I would say that, you know, I'm actually struggling for a point of improvement, or for something to help you elevate this, which is good because you've taken the time to finesse this. I would say after today, and maybe we did talk about this, full disclosure, I'm not going to tell you everything we talked about before this live session, but I would say that if I knew, even just a quick reminder leading up to, by the way, we're going live on Facebook and you're going to get the recording later. You'll be able to share it in your group. You'll be able to do this. You'll be able to do this with the audio. I would say those would be the points of improvement, is just letting the guests know what they can expect leading up to. And it's a good reminder too. I got the calendar reminder on my phone, but even a little tiny follow-up email. And I say this because one of the things that I'm noticing is host and guest relationships is a huge struggle for some podcasters. They want guests, and guests want to be on podcasts, but it needs to be a relationship, and the guest needs to be properly educated all the time through every step of the process, so they know what to expect the day of, after the recording, all of those things. And maybe there's stuff still to come, but I would say that from that perspective, that you maybe could elevate that and improve that a little bit. But otherwise, this whole platform, I think, is phenomenal. I think that how you've structured it is bar none, you know, top notch. You're coming at topics to people in different ways that makes it interesting. You know, you and I have just had a conversation. We both come from places of experience on the topic, which obviously you want. And I'm assuming that the audience is getting something out of it. And hopefully that's giving them some hope to take the next step and transition. So I think the format itself, I would say, nurture a stronger host and guest relationship, because I think what you're going to find is you're going to get more of the guests you want, and the people who are watching this are going to get a greater experience, and they might even want to be guests. That's my feedback.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I used to do the show completely on my own. I've just started bringing in guests, and it's not only that's good advice, but if I had sent that reminder yesterday, I wouldn't have been in a panic today going, oh, wait, I haven't talked to him. Is he actually going to show up? Like, you know, it's just like, and I went, and then you showed up. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and that happens. You know, certainly in the 3 years I've done my podcast, that I've been recording my podcast, I know it happens, and it's something that the more comfortable you become, the easier the process will be for you. But then also, you think about it from the other side, from the guest perspective of, I haven't heard from him. I'm wondering, is this still on? Because the guest, you don't know what's going on with the guest. The guest, you're hoping the guest was smart enough to put it in their phone, which I did, because I think when we talked originally, I was having email issues. So I couldn't, for whatever reason, I wasn't getting your emails. By the way, they eventually showed up, figured out what the issue was, no problem there. But you never know what's going to happen. Technology being what it is, those reminder emails is just a nice little, hey, don't forget we're going live tomorrow. It's from 3 till 4. Come on at about 5 to 3. It's conversational. I'm recording. I'll give you the recording if you want after. Whatever the process is that you're going to walk the guests through is a fantastic experience for them, and it's a great experience for you, because they're going to then promote their experience to other people.
Yes.
And share the recording or whatever, so people get more out of it. Oh, now the table's turned on me, isn't it?
Yeah, here we go. Okay, now you've never actually worked with me before, so I'm going to give an explanation about what's about to happen. Okay. So when I have a conversation with someone, I can tell when your conscious beliefs match your unconscious beliefs. Okay. So I know whenever you're lying. Okay, but I don't care if you're lying to me. I care if you're lying to you. Right. So, you know, I could say, okay, so Carl, what would you like to happen in your business? And you could say, you know, what I'd really like to do is have twice as many clients, right? And I probably look at you and go, nope, that's not coming up true. And you're like, no, I do. I want my business to grow. And then we'll look and we'll start to dig down and find out what the beliefs are underneath that lie. that you think is the truth. And it could be, oh, twice as many clients means twice as much work. And I like the amount of work I'm doing now. And it's all going on at the subconscious level. So you don't know that's running. But then we'll get to whatever that belief is or whatever the story is. And the difference I look at it is the belief is just something that is, and a story is something that repeats. So this always happens to me. Story of my life. Every time those are all stories. But, rich people are assholes. That's just a belief. It's a straight belief, right? So when I get there, I'm going to say, okay, are you willing to destroy this belief, or are you willing to step out of the story, depending on what it is? If you say yes and you mean it, you have to mean it or it doesn't work. Okay. Then it will shift in that moment. And when that happens, you may feel a change inside you. This is very, very common. The most common thing I see for people is that they feel like a tingling or an energy in their chest and it moves out. But anything can happen. We've had people yawn, get hot, get cold, get lightheaded, sometimes feel nausea if it's something deep, right? And for me, when energy shifts for people around me, I tend to yawn and cough. I don't know why, that's just what my body does. So I'm probably going to end up coughing and yawning while we're having this conversation. Don't think I'm sick. Don't think I'm in pain. It's all good. I do this every day. And so that's what's going to happen. We're just going to go through, we're going to start at one thing, see what beliefs and stories we can uncover and start pulling them out and see where we end up at the end. Okay.
Sure.
All right. So now the people listening, for those that are new to the show, when I'm working on Carl, if you feel you have a similar belief and I ask him to destroy the belief, you can say yes, it will move for you too. That is the wonderful thing about how this works. I've already done 3 workshops today and there's big changes. So now we're here with Carl and we're going to see what happens next. Okay. So what is an aspect of your business that you'd like to shift, to change, that hopefully something that's sort of you've been hitting up against that hasn't been able to move? Let's see what's going on there.
Yeah, a couple of things, but certainly one that comes to mind. It actually goes along the lines of what you've just mentioned, and it's not more clients. But it's certainly more of the clients that I want. So more of the clients who are in a position where they want they basically just want to record their content and pass it off to me. So we call it one and done. So I would love to have, and I don't know about the elements of time, but would love to have, a couple more of those in the next 30 to 60 calendar days, say.
Okay. So what are the other clients like?
What are the other clients like?
Yeah.
I do have some one and done clients, but most of the other clients I have are ones who have taken my workshop. They've either taken my workshop or they're in my program and they're learning how to launch their own podcasts without my immediate, hands-on help. Like I'm helping them, but I'm not doing it for them.
Okay. So truth, do you always have to have your hands in the mix?
Yes.
So with one and done, that's not going to happen as much. Is that correct?
No, one and done, your hands are always in the mix.
Okay, so hold on. So with one and done, you said they hand it to you and they're done. So
no, they hand you.
Yep.
They hand you. So let's say we'll take this recording for example. Let's say you wanted to convert this into a fully edited video with content. You're going to also post the audio somewhere. You're going to do a full campaign using audiogram. So you're going to hand over just the raw product to me and say, here you go, Carl, edit this, clean it up, post it to TikTok, and then also make sure that the video is posted up to YouTube and the audio gets posted to Apple Podcasts and all the other sites like that. So the editing behind the scenes to put it all together, to package it, to put it out.
So they just come up, they trust you to do everything. Here you go.
Yeah. Here's the recording. Boom. Please do that.
Okay. And the people you're working with now, that's not the situation. What's the situation?
No, the people who I'm working with now, most of them are clients who are taking a program.
Yep.
that's teaching them how to launch their podcast. So I'm showing them how to do all the editing themselves.
Okay.
And rather than doing it for them, I'm showing them how to do it. And then after the program, they're on their own. They know I'm still available for a call if they need it, but they're generally on their own.
Okay. There's a value component going. Do you feel more value in guiding everyone through the steps?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
I feel value in them knowing the process, but I don't necessarily think they need to know all the behind the scenes things to get it done.
Okay. Okay. So there was some interesting energy in there. When people see the behind the scene things, do they see just exactly the amount of work you do?
No.
No, like the amount of effort, the amount that's involved. Do they get it?
Oh, sorry. Sorry. Yes. Okay. So yes, they do see, if I'm showing them how to do it, they see how much work it is.
Okay.
And even if I'm working one-on-one with them, they'll see how much work it is.
Okay. Do you need people to see exactly how much work you put in to get the quality of work that you put out?
Not necessarily. No.
Okay. So that's not coming up quite true. Right. And this is going to be part of what comes to the one and done, because the one and done, here it is, go do it. They see the finished product, but they don't see everything you go through. And if part of you is like, but look how hard I'm working, right? Even if it's a small part, it's going to limit the amount of one and dones you have to keep you with these people that you can say, look how hard this is. This is what I do for a living.
Mm.
So are you willing to step out of the story that you need to show everyone how hard you work so they acknowledge your value?
Yes.
Okay. And is it hard to find people who will acknowledge your value and just hand you the things to do with, to work with?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that was a big yes. Okay. So just off the top of your head, why do you feel that's so hard to find these people?
Off the top of my head, I partly because it's still fairly new
Mhm.
to me. Like it's still a learning process. It's still ramping everything up. And maybe that goes to the belief of I'm not quite like somebody that's been doing it for longer. So I don't have that history behind me,
Mhm.
if that makes sense. Like I have some history, but not somebody that's been doing this for 10
Okay.
years. As someone
Yep.
that's been doing this for 10 years,
Yep.
they have hundreds or whatever of happy clients that they can say, there's my happy clients.
Yep. Okay. So then again, this is a belief. You need to have that portfolio. You need to have that experience, that backing, so people will hire you. And
Yeah.
that's all just bullshit. That's in your mind. Right. So, and it seems real because you get people like, well, what's your experience? But I remember I was working with one of my clients, and she was talking about, I have to get this certificate. I have to make sure I've got this experience. I've got to get this all lined up so that I'll get those clients, those cream of the crop clients that I really want. And I said, oh, that's interesting. What if you didn't? And she's like, no, you absolutely have to. And I said, why? She goes, because credentials are everything, right? You need to have those stories, that portfolio, or else no one's going to work with you. And I said, oh, what are my credentials? And she went blank. She goes, what? I said, what are my credentials? She goes, I have no idea. Then why are you working with me? Like,
Right.
and she's like, well, we get results. Oh, so
Right.
so it's an illusion. It's something you've created. And I've seen people that there's that connection, there's that resonance with the person you're talking to. You're like, oh my God, I need to work with you. And they don't even ask what the credentials are. They just hear you talking, what you can do. And they're like, Carl, here's my money. let's do this. Okay.
Yeah.
So are you willing to step out of the story that you need that portfolio, that backstory, those credentials before you'll get your ideal clients.
Yes.
Ooh. Okay. Now, how does that feel? Better, worse, the same, or different? There's no wrong answer.
It feels unknown. It feels a little better, but almost feels the same. Doesn't
Okay.
really, yeah.
When you think about how hard it is to get those clients, does it feel different than it did a little while ago?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So when you shift your thinking to I've got to prove myself to I just have to resonate with the right people, then that opens everything up
Mm.
because you're the other thing with proving is there's certain ways the energy works. And most people that are improving are in push energy. And you hear the term pushy salesman, right?
Yeah.
And you may not be a pushy salesman, but you could be in push energy because you're trying to get to prove yourself, right?
Okay.
And so whenever someone feels push energy against them, they automatically tend to push back, unconsciously or not,
Mm.
right? When you're in pull energy, then you're inviting them in, right? And they're like, "Oh, what's Carl got to offer?" And just
Okay.
think about it. Have you ever been to a big concert and you're watching the band or the singer? Are they pushing their energy at the crowd, or are they pulling the whole stadium into their performance? Right.
Right.
So they've mastered that pull energy where it's like just inviting, let's do this, let's have some fun, let's get this done. And
Mm.
that's a whole different energy. There's no proving. It's just like, let's go have a good time. Right? And the more you can get into pull energy, the more powerfully you'll connect with people. And then the last energy that there is just this energy of resonance, where you're just being you. There's no need to pull anyone in. There's no need to push yourself in. I'm just going to be me. And these people, and it's weird because when that happens, some people are just like, I just needed to talk to you. I just felt there was a connect. I have no idea what it is, but let's. Then they're like, oh shit, Carl, we need to work.
Wow. Huh.
All right. So my advice is get into pull or just resonant energy.
Okay.
But when you stop trying to prove yourself, when you stop thinking you need to prove yourself, everything's going to shift because you're going to get out of that push energy. You're going to react. People are going to react to you in a whole
Mm.
different way. Okay, so that's what I do.
Good. That's good. That's good. Yeah, it actually it does feel different. Like I'm feeling lightheaded, I guess, a little bit.
Yeah,
No, it could be the light as well, but I'm also feeling, so it's light, get it? Light,
yes,
bright light headed. But I'm also feeling like it's almost like something just kind of going out the
yeah. That's the
it's
beliefs
like
and
a
the
belief being
yep.
filtered out.
That's it.
Yeah,
Okay,
that was awesome.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah, I'm sorry. I kind of lost track of time because I usually have a segment where I invite everyone to ask you questions, but we're at the top of the hour.
Yeah.
So we may do this again and then some questions, but I want to thank you for that the advice that you gave. That was like definitely like that's going to up my game, especially with the guests, because I want to connect with the guests better. And you're absolutely right on those points. And thank you for being on the show. I mean, this was great. I had some great conversations with you, and yeah, if we do this again, it's going to be fun.
Yeah, let's do it again. Thank you. I had so much fun, and yeah, thank you.
All right. So thank you for being on Rewriting Reality, a breakthrough show extra. Remember, there are the extras like Ask Crystal, and then the breakthrough show is on Fridays. And I'm sorry, Jessica, but I don't know exactly what time. I think it's 1 o'clock Eastern, but it's on Fridays. Just look up on the Breakthrough Show channel on Facebook, which is where you're probably watching this right now, and go there. Those sessions are amazing. There is great talk. There is music. There's all sorts of stuff going on. So that's it for us. We're going to check out of here and we'll be back the last Monday of the month again, as we are every month. Be well, be aware, and be magical. Thank you.